So we're good. So
Okay.
Patrick, thanks again for being with us.
Sure.
We appreciate that. And we'll let you have the floor to begin.
Okay. Well, I guess the question, first question that comes to my mind is, why am I running for school board? And that answer is multifaceted. I think it has something to do with the fact that I was a military brat, and every 2 years I would move through my childhood, and so I always had new challenges. And so now, having been here for over 20 years, and having moved a bit as far as my profession, going from a state attorney into a private practice, I'm constantly looking for a new challenge. And I didn't exactly know what that next challenge would be, but what simply happened was, a few years ago, I got a letter from our district leader, Joe Joyner, the superintendent, and he asked if I would join the committee, the core committee they called it, that was going to spend a year developing the strategic plan for the future of the district. And I considered that an honor, getting the letter, and I called him, and we chatted about it a little bit. I wanted to make sure I knew what the expectations were and what the time element would be, and it seemed it was going to be workable, so we began that process, and we would spend on occasion 2 days in a row. They hired a very reputable facilitator from New York who they had used 10 years earlier, and he is a guy that I was quite fascinated by, and made it a lot more of a learning experience for me, because he does this all around the world. And at the end of the year, I'll jump to the end of the year, he said on a couple occasions to me and to the group, he didn't think that we realized how great our school system is. And I kept thinking he was just blowing smoke, but he was a genuine guy, and he said it more than once. And he basically said, look, I've been in hundreds and thousands of schools in this state, in this country, and across the world. You guys, you know what it takes, and you're doing it right. Now, he wasn't saying you can stop there and don't need to get any better, but it really gave me a sense of pride, made me feel better about having my kids in the public school, and in that year process, I learned a lot about the school system. I learned a lot about the people in the system. Joyner was one of the 30. We had Gordy. We had a lot of people from the community, different parts of the community, and some were teachers. So I ended up getting to meet a lot of the teachers and a lot of the administration. And through the year, we would have presentations made by different parts of the system. So I would get to know them and get to know what they were doing. And at the end of the year, I was impressed with the organization, with the quality of the people, the commitment of the people, and again, I was proud. Even at that point, I was not thinking of running for an office. I didn't go into that thinking that would be a stepping stone to run for office. But after that ended, within the next year, I started thinking, what's my next challenge? And I started thinking about running for a city commission. And I decided that I really didn't have much interest in that. It doesn't seem as pure in my brain as sitting on a board trying to help kids in a school system. That just seems real simple, with a pretty simple mantra: what's right for the kids. So and then I heard Carla Wright was going to retire, and she lives in my district, and I thought, well, who better to step up than myself? So I decided to do it, and since then have gained some support in the community, but at the same time trying to learn as much as I can prior to the election, and certainly if I was to be elected prior to sitting, trying to learn as much as I can. To do that, I'm reading some. I think more importantly, I'm meeting with teachers. I'm trying to garner a teacher committee. I actually have met with some already, but my goal was to get a teacher from each school in the District 5 and to learn from them, and also, if elected, to meet with them regularly, because I think they can provide a tremendous feedback to me as to what's going on in the school system. And they know all the ins and outs about the new requirements and the testing, and they're living it. And some of them don't like it, and some of them accept it, and some of them accept it with a smile. There's a whole range there, I've noticed. But the bottom line is that most of the issues that come through to the school board and that citizens want to talk about really is not school board material. I mean, if there's going to be FCATs and if there's going to be money issues, that's all Tallahassee. I mean, there's only so much a local school board can do. And that's, to me, what I think I should and what the board should focus on. What we can do, not what we can't do.
Hey, you started about the strengths and weaknesses of the district, mostly the strengths. Just summarize what you see as the strengths of St. John's and the growth areas. We won't call them negatives, growth areas.
Well, I see the strengths of the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
I consider the leadership is a tremendous strength. I see the versatility is a tremendous strength, and when I say versatility, there's a willingness to not necessarily educate kids like we did 30 years ago. It's much more open-minded, and it's much more in tune with each kid's needs. Now you can't do something totally isolated for each kid, but you can build areas that a kid will be more likely to be interested in. And I'm really kind of talking about the academies. Right. And when you look at the numbers of the dropout rate going way down and the increase in the graduation going way up, and to me it appears to be a direct correlation of these academies. I mean, the numbers are phenomenal. And to me, that's why I just think there should be more development of that type of stuff. But I do think the major strength is the leadership, the commitment of the staff. I think we're blessed to have a committed community as well, and a beautiful place to live, and I think that all helps. Create a challenging school system.
You mentioned Tallahassee. One of the things that is interesting to me is the great gap, if you will, between what the role is of a good education system between, say, the school board, all of whom happen to now be Republicans, and the local legislators, Bill Proctor and John Thrasher, who have a very different vision for public education than these folks do. And as a result, you can go around and ask in the school district, I'm willing to bet you'll find fewer than 5 people who think pay for performance is affordable and will work. But there's clearly not a gap, but a chasm between those. And you've mentioned in some of your earlier presentations that that's something you would like to address. You're a Democrat. How are you going to bridge that gap, or help bridge that gap?
Well, it's a nonpartisan race, and maybe it's self-serving for me to say I don't think the party should play a role. It's nonpartisan. It shouldn't matter. And I am a Democrat, and I'm not ashamed of it. But I probably should have introduced that. I was just saying, how are you going to get people like John Thrasher and whoever replaces Bill to listen to you? How are you going to get the St. Johns County voice at the table, St. Johns County School Board's voice at the table? Well, I think it's a good question, but the only way I think you're going to challenge him is if he feels a threat. And the only way I think he feels a threat is, to me, it's the teachers. The teachers are the ones that have to stand strong and demand, and the parents. I mean, I can go talk to the guy, but I don't, he's not going to change something for me. I mean, it's kind of an odd arrangement in that a lot of people are Republicans, but the Republicans that I know, friends of mine, they don't like what's happening in Tallahassee as it relates to education. So it seems like to me they're caught in the middle and have to make some pretty tough choices.
I thought you would, in the earlier presentation, I thought you said that one of your selling points was that you would go there as a representative for the school board, as a lobbyist, if you will, sort of like what Bev Slough now does. Yeah. To help get the voice or the opinion of this school district heard.
Well, I think all that was a little taken out of context, but certainly, especially if Bev's not there anymore, or even if she is, I would do everything I can going to Tallahassee to try to influence people. It's a difficult task, though.
You mentioned earlier on, and you're quite correct, and if you listen to Joe Joyner, he'll tell you this loud and clear, and also to the school board members, they'll make the same point. They have a lot less power than they used to. There is it's ironic that in a Republican administration or Republican-controlled legislature that they're moving the power to Tallahassee when they argue they're for decentralized control. Why do you want to be on a board that increasingly has less power, if you believe what Joe and Bev and the others on the board say?
Well, I still think he can make a difference. I still think there are local issues that need direction. And to me, being there is all about trying to do everything you can that you have power over for the benefit of the kids. So I mean, it's limited. I already know there's a disconnect between the public and me, because they wanted me to talk about FCATs and all this, and I'm thinking I might have a position about FCATs, but FCATs gets forced on St. Johns County, and then you just got to deal with it. And what's the most positive way you can deal with it?
Well, it's going away, so that helps that debate. What about pay for performance? Is when it's implemented, is very expensive. The two superintendents from Seminole and Orange counties, when they announced their retirements, the Orlando Sentinel quoted them both saying is that when people realize how expensive pay for performance is, it will go away, because people may like it intellectually, but they're not willing to pay for it. And Bill Proctor gave this, and so I'll suggest this as a guideline. He told the editorial board that he thought the salary for teachers should be $60,000. He thought that was professional grade. Average salary is now $48,000 in the district. So, doing the math quickly, if everybody achieves that standard, if they average $60,000, it's about $22 million a year, maybe $23 million. Is there money out there for this? Is there money in the school district? Is there money in the state? Have you heard anywhere where this money is going to come from?
Not that I know of.
No.
There's not. There's not. I mean, they're drawing off their reserves now.
So what's going to happen? 2 years down the road, the teachers go with either no pay raises or paltry pay raises, and pay for performance isn't effect, and there's no money for it.
Well, I don't know. I think teachers are going to be in a position where they're not going to get raises until there's money. I mean, the school system's tied to the economy, and thankfully this county put together or held back some money years ago, or we'd be in a lot worse shape. And unless it turns around, it's going to get worse. So I don't know. I talk to teachers about the pay for performance, and some hate it, and some love it. Some think that it's not a big deal. If you're a good teacher, you're going to be fine. If you're not, then you'll get weeded out. And maybe that's a good thing.
The Joyner has said, I'm on this media panel where he brings people in and talks about the big issues, and he's said repeatedly that they are on the verge of having to make big cuts because they've cut around the edges. With the if it goes, it goes. The energy conservation program and everything they've done. He said the only thing left is direct support of children, which is mostly instruction. And those are decisions that be made not by Joe, because he had to recommend them to you. Recommended the school board making those decisions. Those are tough decisions. If you are elected, what would your priorities be? What would your skill? What would be the untouchable, and what would be the things that would have to be in the table?
Well, let me make sure I understand the question. What would the priorities be if suddenly the money was not there?
It's not suddenly. Joe said this will happen next year unless the economy gets better, which no one anticipates. He can only go so far. I think it's $30 million from reserves. It used to be $48 million. So, and I think what's the base? $10 million he can go. So, he's already burned through a big chunk of that money. Not burned through, but I mean dipped into it. And eventually they're going to have to make cuts in instruction. So you're going to have to give the school board's going to have to give the administration guidance on what it sees as its priorities to save and what will have to be in the chopping block.
I mean, I have ideas. I'm not in a position to say I'm ready to lay out a plan where this has to happen, because all of them are tightening the belt plans. I mean, you can load up kids in classrooms, or you can run a school in the morning and run another school in the afternoon. I mean, there's ways to save money and to make it happen. That would be awful, and people start then wanting to talk cutting academics and athletics and music programs and art programs. That to me would be really sad. At that point, the community's going to have to step up and keep these things alive. I think we'd have to turn to the community, because it would be unacceptable if suddenly we didn't have athletics and we didn't have arts. And so if it gets to that point, I guess in my head I'm thinking he's going to have to do the best he can with the money for teaching, and